study of AFL players in South Australia has revealed some alarming trends when it comes to concussed players. The research indicates that in a large amount of cases, those involved in the trial who suffered concussions weren't ready to play even after 12-day breaks, while some got worse after that period.
It's the potential multi-million-dollar question sporting administrators around the world are grappling with.
Top, it spills to Silvani, who's gone down hard. He's out cold.
Just what is the minimum time an athlete should sit out after suffering a concussion?
12 days for some people is not long enough.
That is Dr. David Stevens, whose latest research into the topic should put officials worldwide on notice.
The important result that we attained from our trial is that even after completing the 12-day sort of no-play policy that was implemented by the AFL at the start of 2021, around half the players were physiologically not ready to return to the field, or they hadn't returned back to baseline levels, even though they were reporting that they were feeling fine and that they thought they were ready to go back.
Stevens has been leading a study using NeuroFlex, groundbreaking Australian-owned technology aimed at helping codes and clubs individualise their return-to-play protocols.
The current sort of protocols, the sideline protocols, are, for all intents and purposes, subjective. They ask a player about their symptoms, ask them some rudimentary cognitive tests, but there's very little objectivity in it. And so what it does mean is it's ultimately up to the doctor to make that call as to whether or not the player is concussed or not. And so therein lies the issues with ambiguity around identifying concussion.
Removing that ambiguity is the goal. In this study, baseline levels were taken on 300 AFL players from the SANFL and SANFL W. Around 100 of those were female. A total of 39 concussions were referred to NeuroFlex after being picked up using current club protocols. Intriguingly, between 25 and 50% of those players weren't ready to return by the 12-day mark mandated by the AFL as the minimum break for a player post-concussion, despite those players feeling fine.
What's important is that this is actually not the first time this has been shown. Studies involving sort of far more sophisticated imagery such as magnetic resonance imaging have essentially shown the same results, but this is the first time that these results have been shown in what is a portable, what is an easy-to-use technology that can be implemented on the sideline or indeed very soon after the injury occurred.
Of increasing concern is that 10 to 20% of athletes in the study were even worse by the time they reached the 12th day.
The NeuroFlex is picking up ocular, so eye sort of deficiencies that usually cannot be seen by another human but can be seen with the technology that we're using. And we're also picking up what we refer to as vestibular issues, and so that's how well your head and eyes can coordinate the movement. We do know that returning to play prior to being properly recovered from concussion does lead to further concussions.
Alarmingly, female athletes in the study were 2 to 3 times more likely than men to suffer concussion.
Yeah, 100%. It's concerning. Any stat you see like that, especially for something so serious, is going to throw red flags up.
Researchers and players alike identified technique issues as a major cause.
You know, like going out and playing Auskick, you get taught how to tackle effectively, yet when we come in at an older age, you've got to learn that from scratch, and it's a bit harder to teach when you've, you know, probably a lot of girls are used to poor habits with tackling or just don't know.
The AFL is monitoring the results of this trial as they try and fine-tune their response to head injuries. A recent report titled Insights and Impact, released by the AFL Players Association, deals in part with the elite playing group's current attitude towards concussion. The findings include that 5.6% of players still are not reporting concussion. 6.2% that did continue playing or training without medical attention after receiving a concussion, The report says the figure has been stable year on year, but is still too high. Now, 64% of players are concerned about the long-term effects of concussion. In its recommended actions, the AFLPA calls for a continued focus by the AFL on developing a science-based position on player return-to-play protocols. NeuroFlex says it does just that.
It takes the old school follow my finger with your eyes or follow my pencil with your eyes, and it essentially digitises it, and it gives us numbers that we can put to those tests, whereas before you were just relying on the player to report their symptoms.
Leading the way, Rugby Australia and their New Zealand counterparts are already using the technology in their domestic competitions. It'll also be rolled out during the forthcoming FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Luke Doherty, Fox Sports News.
And in response to our story, the Sandful's executive GM, Matt Duldig, told Fox Sports News the trial from NeuroFlex at Sandful clubs has been positive, and we look forward to continuing to work with medical professionals on the next steps. Sandful takes the safety of all players extremely seriously, and as such, we are always looking at new opportunities and technologies which support a safe return for any player that's experienced concussion.